Peace and power. Mm. Hey sis, I don't have a camera on because I don't feel comfortable today. Hope y'all can hear me loud and clear. Switch mics. Just want to pull, and then I'm gonna go outside and get some sun. There's a lot going on. So we're gonna get in here, shuffle these chords, pull them, and go. Got up about 7 something, and just wasn't feeling it. Okay. Good, I'm glad you could hear. Oh, excuse me. What is it? Mm. I spent yesterday decluttering. Mm. So we are gonna pull the tarot first. And again, I don't have on the camera because just not feeling up to par. I had to reorganize my office, and so it's too much of my background in the background of the video. And it's okay. Okay, so we are pulling our cards. So I got the tarot shuffle. I'm gonna shuffle both so we can pull them at the same time. I was gonna get on here yesterday and I just started cleaning, doing a little packing, and I just did not get a chance. I pulled a sunflower again, and then I pulled, I think it was the affection card, whatever the sorrow card is, for yesterday. Today, We are going to pull just to see. Hmm. We're just getting going. Getting it going and getting. Oh, all right. So I have my coconut water here. Cheers to the water drinkers. I have my homemade cranberry juice and also my humic fulvic. When I wake up in the morning, I get all my liquids in. And before I slide out the door to the yard, I'll have my humic fulvic. So yeah. Now going to the deck. We need to know the energy for today. I had asparagus before I went to bed last night, and I don't know if that's why I'm not feeling up to par. I was just trying to eat the asparagus before be going bad. Okay. Y'all know asparagus, usually if you cook it to death, it ain't gonna last long. Okay. And I tend to overcook mine. But it was delicious to me nonetheless. And so yeah. I'm gonna pull this card. It's my last shuffle for the tarot. Ooh. Okay, so we pulled the Hangman, and the flower is the angel's trumpet. And so the Hangman is card number 12. Also, card number 3. The number 3. Flower, the angel's trumpet. Ringing of the angel. Trumpets of the angel. Which herb? Herb of the sorcerer. The suspended position. The role of the victim. Letting go and a radical change. The high hallucinogenic properties of the angel's trumpet have been known since the Middle Ages and were used for religious rituals and medicinal purposes. According to the legend, the plant can give knowledge about how to treat diseases. It is called the plant teacher, and it's also the flower is still actively used in their practice by magicians, shamans, and specialists in working with otherworldly energies. The original shape of the flower is resembling a wind instrument. Looking at it in association with the intervention of higher forces come to mind. The angel's trumpet is called the flower of power because it also has a healing effect. The main thing is to observe the dosage. As often happens in nature, it acts as a medicine, poison, and antidote at the same time. And energetically, Angel's Trumpet cleans the space of negative energy and protects against night fears. Angel's trumpet is a sign that invisible forces are always there to help us. Classic meaning of the card: changing your view of the world, expression, loss, punishment, fulfillment of duty, trap, inability to act, transition to a new level, new, different view of the world, salvation at the expense of loss, emergency situation, wisdom, caution, sacrifice and trials, intuition, divination, and foresight. A person completely changes their life. A person completely changes their life actually turns the world upside down. And the description of the story on the card is: the card depicts a three-tiered flower of angel trumpet resembling a gramophone. The flower and leaves of the plant are lowered, which is associated with the classic card. So, yeah, it's just a single flower on the card. I don't know why they say three-tiered. I guess because it's so big. But then, um, letting go and a radical change. We keep getting these cards oriented with change. If you are sitting still and in an unhealthy environment and you know it, then yeah, that's the issue. If you are letting fear or anything else override what you have going on. And the hangman is the card. And so, what did it say? Let's read it again. The angel's trumpet is the flower. Pharaoh, what you was trying to tell me? Okay, and so, we just pulled the hangman. And like I said, the role of the victim, letting go, role. I'll start putting this stuff in here. Of the victim, letting go, and radical change. All right, so transition to a new level. That's why I say this is a season to switch stuff up. If you still sitting still and complaining and sad and you're unhappy yet afraid to move, then your reality will be what it is. But yeah, so that was that card. Now I gotta go back and upload my video about Kybalion. I gotta get the books uploaded on the business page. It's like copy for end, and now we chapters behind We almost done with the Kybalion, so we gotta keep it pushing. Gotta stay diligent. So the first card we pulled out the tarot was the Hangman. And the interprets the flowers, and then meaning, and it's what you embrace. So we're gonna pull from the green. Ooh. Card number 35, which is also 8. Um, the card is the focus card. You gotta focus if you want to change. And so the flower is the stock flower. Well, let's see. Let me type it. Green Thumb Oracle. So we pull 35, which is the focus. And then the flower is the stock flower. And so it says, I like gardening. It's a place where I find myself when I need to lose myself. I agree. Oracle meaning stocks offer confidence, calmness, and a centered place to rest amid turmoil and change. We keep talking about change here. It is time to focus, to think more deeply and slow down. Your personal truth needs some attention, so don't let it get lost in your present dealings. Stocks also indicate and lead you to a balanced place in emotional swings. Be careful of losing yourself amid the behaviors of others. Magical correspondences is relaxation, completion, contentment, slowing down in affection. The deities are Nyx, Zephyros, and Flora. The celestial is Jupiter, and the astrological sign for this card is Sagittarius. And so, yeah, meanings, relaxation, completion, contentment, slowing down, and affection. This card is ruled by Jupiter. Big Jupiter is expansion. Jupiter represents expansion. It's time to expand past where you are, love. And the sign will be Sag. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't type faster. So, the meaning, so y'all can see. And then the astrology. Yeah. So, all y'all again that aren't making moves at this time, when the energy supports you coming into your own and moving around and expanding, and you still sitting still, we don't want to hear in the colder months that you're sad and depressed, because when it was hot outside, you refused to move. Okay, so I'm gonna go right into the Kybalion because we can't waste another moment. Okay, we gotta get this stuff done. We are on chapter. We gotta get it done. We on chapter 14. What y'all thought? Can y'all imagine we got to chapter 14 that fast? It's only, what, 15 chapters? Chapter 1. Uh, uh. Okay, so let's get it. We are on chapter 14, and chapter 14 is about mental gender. Students of psychology who have followed the modern trend of thought along the lines of mental phenomena are struck by the persistence of the dual mind idea, which has manifested itself so strongly during the past 10 or 15 years, and which has given rise to a number of plausible theories regarding the nature and constitution of these two minds. The late Thomas J. Hudson attained great popularity in 1893 by advancing his well-known theory of the objective and subjective mind, which he held existed in every individual. Other writers have attracted almost equal attention by the theories regarding the conscious and subconscious mind, the voluntary and involuntary minds, the active and passive minds, etc., etc. The theories of the various writers differ from each other, but there remains the underlying principle of the duality of mind. I'm sorry, I forgot to share the screen. Share. Share. And then we're on page 194. So it ain't no 194. 180. No. Shit. Hold on, I'm trying to share the screen. Hold on. Okay. It won't let me type the page. So let's just scroll. Hmm. Mental gender. That's where we at. All right, here we go. Okay, so the students of Hermetic philosophy is tempted to smile. Let me go back. The theories of the various writers differ from each other, but there remains the underlying principle of the duality of mind. The student of the Hermetic philosophy is tempted to smile when he reads and hears of these many new theories regarding the duality of mind, each school adhering tenaciously to its own pet theories and each claiming to have discovered the truth. The student turns back the pages of occult history and away back in the dim beginnings of occult teachings, he finds references to the Hermetic doctrine of the principle of gender on the mental plane, which is also the manifestation of mental gender. And examining further, he finds that the ancient philosophy took cognizance of the phenomenon of the dual mind and accounted for it by the theory of mental gender. This idea of mental gender may be explained in a few words to students who are familiar with the modern theories just alluded to. The masculine principle of mind corresponds to the so called objective mind, conscious mind, voluntary mind, active mind, etc. And the feminine principle of mind corresponds to the so called subjective mind, subconscious mind, involuntary mind, passive mind, etc. Of course, the Hermetic teachings do not agree with the many modern theories regarding the nature of the two phases of mind, nor does it admit many of the facts claimed for the two respective aspects. Some of the said theories and claims being very far fetched and incapable of standing the test of experiment and demonstration. We point to the phases of agreement merely for the purpose of helping the student to assimilate his previously acquired knowledge with the teachings of the Hermetic philosophy. Students of Hudson will notice the statement at the beginning of his second chapter, The Law of Psychic Phenomena, that the mystic jargon of the Hermetic philosophers discloses the same general idea, i.e., the duality of mind. If Dr. Hudson had taken the time and trouble to decipher a little of the mystic jargon of the Hermetic philosophy, he might have received much light upon the subject of the dual mind, but then perhaps his most interesting work might not have been written. Let us now consider the Hermetic teachings regarding mental gender. The Hermetic teachings impart instruction regarding this subject by bidding their students examine 1 minute. The Hermetic teachers impart their instruction regarding this subject by bidding their students examine the report of their consciousness regarding their self. The students are bidden to turn their attention inward upon the self dwelling within each, and each student is led to see that his consciousness gives him first a report of the existence of self, and the report is I am. This at first seems to be the final words from the consciousness, but a little further examination discloses the fact that this I am may be separated or split into two distinct parts or aspects, which, while working in unison and in conjunction, yet nevertheless may be separated in consciousness. While at first there seems to be only an I existing, a more careful and closer examination reveals the fact that there exists an I and a me. These mental twins differ in their characteristics and nature. And an examination of their nature and the phenomena arising from the same will throw much light upon many of the problems of mental influence. This is the chapter I've been telling y'all about. Let us begin with a consideration of the me, which is usually mistaken for the I, by the student until he presses the inquiry a little further back into the recesses of consciousness. A man thinks of himself in its aspect of me as being composed of certain feelings, tastes, likes, dislikes, habits, peculiarities, characteristics, etc., all of which go to make up his personality or the self known to himself and others. He knows that these emotions and feelings change, are born and die away, are subject to the principle of rhythm and the principle of polarity, which take him from one extreme of feeling to another. He also thinks of the me as being certain knowledge gathered together in his mind and thus forming a part of himself. This is the me of a man, but we have proceeded too hastily. The me of many men may be said to consist largely of their consciousness of the body and their physical appetites, etc., their consciousness being largely bound up with their bodily nature. They practically live there. Some men even go so far as to regard their personal apparel as a part of their me and actually seem to consider it a part of themselves. A writer has humorously said that men consist of three parts: soul, body, and clothes. These clothes, conscious people would lose their personality if divested of their clothing by savages upon the occasion of a shipwreck. But even many who are not so closely bound up with the idea of personal raiment stick closely to the consciousness of their bodies being their me. They cannot conceive a self independent of the body. Their mind seems to them to be practically a something belonging to their body, which in many cases it is indeed. But as a man rises in the scale of consciousness, he is able to disentangle his me from his idea of body and is able to think of his body as belonging to the mental part of him. But even then, he is very apt to identify the me entirely with the mental states, feelings, etc., which he feels to exist within him. He is very apt to consider these internal states as identical with himself instead of their being simply things produced by some part of his mentality and existing within him of him in him but still not himself. He sees that he may change these internal states of feelings by an effort of will, and that he may produce a feeling or state of an exactly opposite nature in the same way, and yet the same me exists. And so, after a while, he is able to set aside these various mental states, emotions, feelings, habits, qualities, characteristics, and other personal mental belongings. He is able to set them aside in the not me collection of curiosities and encumbrances, as well as valuable possessions. This requires much mental concentration and power of mental analysis on the part of the student, but still the task is possible for the advanced student, and even those not so far advanced are able to see in the imagination how the process may be performed. And so what they're talking about here is how people identify themselves with their clothing and their environment sometimes. Um, Trying to get back and did a perform. Okay. After this laying aside process has been performed, the student will find himself in conscious possession of a self which may be considered in its I and me dual aspects. The me will be felt to be a something mental in which thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings, and other mental states may be produced. It may be considered as the mental womb, as the ancients styled it, capable of generating mental offspring. It reports to the consciousness as a me with latent powers of creation and generation of mental progeny of all sorts. Its powers of creative energy are felt to be enormous, but still it seems to be conscious that receive it must receive some form of energy from either its eye companion or else from some other eye ere it is able to bring into being its mental creations. Its consciousness brings with it a realization of an enormous capacity for mental work and creative ability. But the student soon finds that this is not all that he finds within his inner consciousness. He finds that there exists a mental something which is able to will that the me act along certain creative lines and which is also able to stand aside and witness the mental creation. His part of himself he is taught to call his I. I He is able to rest in his consciousness at will. He finds there not a consciousness of an ability to generate and actively create in the sense of the gradual process attended upon mental operations, but rather a sense and consciousness of an ability to project an energy from the I to the me, a process of willing that the mental creation begin and proceed. He also finds that the I is able to stand aside and witness the operations of means, mental creation, and generation. There is this dual aspect in the mind of every person. The I represents the masculine principle of the mental gender, then the me represents the female gender. The I represents the aspect of being, and the me the aspect of becoming. And so right here where you will notice, what is it? Okay, let me hurry up. So similar. Hold on, lost my space. You will notice that the principle of correspondence operates on this plane just as it does upon the great plane, which the creation of universes is performed. The two are similar in kind, although vastly different in degree, as above, so below, and as below, so above. These aspects of mind, the masculine and feminine principles, the I and the me, considered in connection with the well-known mental and psychic phenomena, give the master key to these dimly known regions of mental operation and manifestation. The principle of mental gender gives the truth, underlying the whole field of the phenomenon of mental influence, etc. The tendency of the feminine principle is always in the direction of receiving impressions, while the tendency of the masculine principle is always in the direction of giving out or expressing. The feminine principle has a much more varied field of operation than has the masculine principle. The feminine principle conducts the work of generating new thoughts, new concepts, ideas, including the work of the imagination. The masculine principle contents itself with the work of the will in its varied phases, and yet without the active aid of the will of the masculine principle, the feminine principle is apt to rest content with generating mental images which are the result of impressions received from the outside instead of producing original mental creations. Persons who can give continued attention and thought to a subject actively employ both of the mental principles, the feminine in the work of the act of mental generation, and the masculine will in stimulating and energizing the creative portion of the mind. The majority of persons really employ the masculine principle, but little and are to content to live according to the thoughts and ideas instilled into the me from the eye of other minds. But it is not our purpose to dwell upon this phase of the subject, which may be studied from any good textbook upon psychology, with the key that we have given you regarding mental gender. The student of psychic phenomena is aware of the wonderful phenomenon classified under the head of telepathy, thought transference, mental influence, suggestion, hypnotism, etc. Many have sought for an explanation of these varied phases of phenomena under the theories of the various dual mind teachers, and in a manifestation of two distinct phases of mental activity. But if such students will consider these dual minds in the light of the Hermetic teachings regarding vibrations and mental gender, they will see that the long sought for key is at hand. In the phenomena of telepathy, it is seen how the vibratory energy of the masculine principle is projected toward the feminine principle of another person, and the latter takes the seed thought and allows it to develop into maturity. And so this is what the TV does. You take in somebody's idea using the vibratory energy of the masculine principle, and it's projected towards the feminine principle of another person. And the latter takes the seed thought and allows it to develop into maturity. Suggestive ads, suggestive selling. Okay. Hmm. In the same way, suggestion and hypnotism operates. The masculine principle of the person giving the suggestion directs a stream or a stream of vibratory energy or willpower towards the feminine principle of the person, and the latter, accepting it, makes its own acts and thinks accordingly. An idea thus lodged in the mind of another person grows and develops, and in time is regarded as the rightful mental offspring of the individual. But it's not yours. It's been suggested. You got to know that. And so wherever it is in reality, like the cuckoo egg placed in the sparrow's nest, where it destroys the rightful offspring and makes itself at home, the normal method is for the masculine and the feminine principle in a person's mind to co-coordinate and act harmoniously in conjunction with each other. But unfortunately, the masculine principle in the average person is too lazy to act, and the display of willpower is too slight, and the consequence is that such persons are ruled almost entirely by the minds and wills of other persons. That's deep. This right here, that's deep. It said that y'all are being rude, okay? We are being influenced and ruled. It said, but unfortunately, the masculine principle in the average person is too lazy to act, and the display of willpower is too slight. And so the consequence is that such persons are ruled entirely by the minds and wills of other persons whom they allow to do their thinking and willing for them. Mm. It's funny how they cut this part out the book. How few original thoughts or original actions are performed by the average person? Are not the majority of persons mere shadows and echoes of others having stronger wills or minds than themselves? The trouble is that the average person dwells almost altogether in his me consciousness and does not realize that he has such a thing as an I. He is polarizing the feminine principle of the mind and the masculine principle in which is lodged the will is allowed to remain inactive and not employed. The strong men and women of the world invariably manifest the masculine principle of the will, and their strength depends materially upon this fact. Instead of living upon the impressions made upon their minds by others, they dominate their own minds by their will, obtaining the kind of mental images desired, and moreover, dominate the minds of others likewise in the same manner. Look at the strong people. He said, look at the strong people, how they manage to implant their seed thoughts in the minds of masses of people, thus causing the latter to think thoughts in accordance with the desires and wills of strong individuals. This is why the masses of people are such sheep like creatures, never originating an idea of their own, nor using their own powers of mental activity. Mm. We always talk about the sheep. That's how you know this stuff has been always around. That's why most people are sheep like people. That's why. Manifestations of mental gender may be noticed all around us in everyday life. The magnetic persons are those who are able to use the masculine principle in the way of impressing their ideas upon others. The actor who makes people weep or cry as he wills is employing this principle, and so is the successful orator, statesman, preacher, writer, or other people who are before the public attention. The peculiar influence exerted by some people over others is due to the manifestation of mental gender along the vibrational lines above indicated. Like you said, when the actor makes you cry when they cry, they just acting. In this principle lies the secret of personal magnetism. Now I'm highlighting. Okay. Personal magnetism, personal influence, fascination, etc., as well as the phenomenon generally grouped under the name hypnotism. The student who has familiarized himself with the phenomenon generally spoken of as psychic will have discovered the important part played in the said phenomenon by the force which science has styled suggestion, by which the term is meant the process or method whereby an idea is transferred to or impressed upon the mind of another, causing the second mind to act in accordance therewith. That's hypnotism. And so a correct understanding of suggestion is necessary in order to intelligently comprehend the various psychical, psychical phenomena which suggestion underlies, but still more is a knowledge of vibration and mental gender necessary for the student of suggestion. For the whole principle of suggestion depends upon the principle of mental gender and vibration. It is customary for the writers and teachers of suggestion to explain that it is the objective or voluntary mind which makes the mental impression or suggestion upon the subjective or involuntary mind. But they do not describe the process or give us any analogy in nature whereby we may more readily comprehend the idea. But if you will think of the matter in the light of the Hermetic teachings, you will be able to see that the energizing of the feminine principle by the vibratory energy of the masculine principle is in accordance to the universal laws of nature, and that the natural world affords countless analogies whereby the principle may be understood. In fact, the Hermetic teachings show us that the very creation of the universe follows the same law, and that in all creative manifestations upon the planes of the spiritual, the mental, and the physical, there is always in operation the principle of gender, this manifestation of the masculine and feminine principles, as above, so below, and as below, so above. And so, and more than this, when the principle of mental gender is once grasped and understood, the very phenomenon of psychology at once becomes capable of intelligent classification and study instead of being very much in the dark. The principle works out in practice because it is based upon the immutable universal laws of life. We shall not enter into an extended discussion of or description of the varied phenomena of the mental influence or psychic activity. There are many books, and many of them quite good, which have been written and published on the subject of late years. The main facts stated in these various books are correct, although the several writers have attempted to explain the phenomena by various pet theories of their own. The student may acquaint himself with these matters, and by using the theory of mental gender, he will be able to bring order out of the chaos of conflicting theory and teachings, and may moreover readily make himself a master of the subject if he be so inclined. The purpose of this work is not to give an extended account of psychic phenomena, but rather to give the student a master key whereby he may unlock the many doors leading into the parts of the temple of knowledge which he may wish to explore. We feel that in this consideration of the teachings of the Kybalion, one may find an explanation which will serve to clear away many perplexing difficulties, a key that will unlock many doors. What is the use of going into detail regarding all the many features of psychic phenomena and mental science, provided we place in the hands of the student the means whereby he may acquaint himself fully regarding any phase of the subject which may interest him. With the aid of the Kybalion, one may go through any occult library anew, and the old light from Egypt illuminating many dark pages and obscure subjects. This is the purpose of the book. We do not come expounding a new philosophy, but rather furnishing the outlines of a great world old teaching, which will make clear the teachings of others, which will serve as the great reconciler of differing theories and opposing doctrines. And so they come in not teaching new stuff, but letting you know that the old stuff is still in place. Oh, so that was it. Okay. So so we got that done. I feel good. I love this chapter. This tells you, gives you the key to them and how they use television to influence. And so we are now done with chapter 14. We got chapter 15 coming up. And I'm so grateful y'all tuned in, man. This is a good book. I was feeling a little down. And so when I started reading this, because once you understand how the world really works and how your emotions sometimes will have you in a sad place when there's no reason to be sad, the Kybalion to clear it up. It's how you look at things. It's 111. And so, yeah, that is it. I'm gonna get out of here, y'all, because if I don't, well, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let the timer tick, but I do want to get out of here. I don't want to keep it long. We pulled our cards. We read chapter 14. We are in there. And what is chapter 14? I don't know why I'm not putting the subtitles. Hold on. Oh, mental gender. That's what it is. Yep. This was the chapter on mental gender. So again, it's teaching about magnetism. Magnetism. How if you're in balance within your thoughts, then you know nothing is by chance. There's no such thing called luck, and that everything happens for a reason. And so you have to move with the punches instead of being emotional, because they say that the masters are not swayed by their emotions. The master does what they need to do. Are you a master, or are you just a mere person being swayed back and forth by your emotions? Either way, own it, you know. And so, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Peace and power. And I'm out.